Hello, in this lesson, we'll review the block sorting system that was created for this tutorial so that we can show how we can utilize a blueprint function library and C++ code in Unreal Engine 4. So we have our starting level here, and if we actually click to play in the viewport, we have our first-person camera, and we can walk over and see that there's a row of blocks here, that there are red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and violet blocks, the colors of the rainbow. Very deliberate, because if we walk up these stairs here, there is a button at the top here. When you walk up to it, it says right click to shuffle, and when you right click, it is supposed to shuffle these boxes. Right now it isn't, because we haven't implemented the system. So what we're going to do in this first half of the series is to go in and actually write a C++ function that will do a sort on a array so that we can use that to apply a random color to each of these blocks so that they appear to be shuffled every time that you right click standing next to this podium. So let's really quickly take a look at what this system is actually doing behind the scenes so we know where we need to insert our C++ code. So if you have this podium highlighted here, you can go into our scene outliner and click the edit hyperlink here to edit our BP shuffle button is the name of this object. So you see we've already got some code already filled out in here. So let's go through this really quickly. If we zoom in, we have our event begin play. So when the game starts, what this does is it will go and grab all of the target point actors in the level. And if you look, there's a line of target point actors along this part of the level here. This is where all of the spawning points are for these blocks. We're using these as a rudimentary spawn point for spawning in these blocks. Once we have all of those, we store them in an array of all these target points, and then we loop through all of the target points. We get their world location, and then from this for each loop, we go through and we spawn a block, and we pick a color. Now, this isn't actually where we're going to do any of the sorting. This is where the blocks come into the level at the very beginning, and we want them to have a very specific order. So if we look at this rainbow block colors, we can see that there are actually 18 colors here, and they are 3 of each: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and violet. So this is a very specific order. We want them to be in color sequence order when the level starts, but then shuffle them later. So this is getting them in that sequence starting, and we also take the block that we've spawned and we store it in a array of all the spawned blocks. Now there's a couple other node networks here. Let's skip down and look at on component begin overlap. What this does is it checks for any actor that triggers the trigger sphere, which is our sphere component here, which is this yellow sphere component. So whenever someone actually triggers this or walks into it like that, then what they're actually going to do is then be checked to see if they implement the BPI player interface, which our player does. If they do, then we're going to tell that actor, which in that case is the player, we're going to tell them using this interface to cache the actor, which is to cache ourselves, so they have a reference to the actor that they walked into, and then also to tell them that they can interact with an actor, and then to turn on the help text. And this help text is right here, and what it says is right click to shuffle. So this is basically the user interface that comes up that tells you what you're supposed to do to activate this button. And then we also have down here, right below it, an on-component end overlap. This does the exact same thing as does the exact same thing as on-component begin overlap, just in reverse. So it's checking if our player is what has actually overlapped our trigger sphere component, and then if it has, we're telling it that it can't interact with any actors anymore, and then we're hiding our help text. Then there was one, if we scroll up, then there's this section where we're actually shuffling the rainbow blocks. And what this does is this is responding to a custom event in BPI interaction, which is another blueprint interface that is on any interactable object in this game. So when something tries to interact with this, it's going to try to shuffle the rainbow boxes, and then it prints a string that we've shuffled the boxes. So this function right here, the shuffle rainbow boxes, this is actually where we're going to be needing some C++ code. So what this does, this is all done in Blueprint right now, and we're all going to leave most of this in Blueprint. What this does is it takes all of our rainbow blocks, loops through, and destroys them. So it basically gets rid of all the blocks that are already there, and then it clears the array that was storing all of the references to our blocks that we've now destroyed. Once that's done, it loops through all the target points that we gathered, gets their world location, and then assigns a color to a block that it spawns at the world location, and then caches those blocks. So it's basically doing the same thing as when we start the game, except that it is already going through and destroying what's already there. When the game starts, there aren't any blocks there to destroy. Now, where we're going to insert our C++ code is right at this part here. This is where we're actually getting a color, and we're actually telling the block what color we want it to be. We're assigning a block color. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually make a separate array that instead of pulling the index number for what color to pull out of this array, instead of pulling the index number from this for each loop, which is the index number for the target points, we're actually going to make an array of integer numbers, and then we're going to shuffle that array and then use those integer numbers to assign this. Now, that sounds kind of like a complex way to do it, and it kind of sort of is, but the reason we're doing that is that means that our C++ code can be relatively simple. And the reason we want the C++ code to be simple is that this is supposed to be an introductory tutorial series to show you how to start writing C++ code and inserting it as Blueprint nodes through Blueprint function libraries. And I didn't want to have a super complicated piece of C++ code that you guys had to also follow along with, in addition to trying to figure out how to actually get it inserted into the engine. So this is the point where we're going to kind of come in and modify how the color is being assigned. And once that's done, then in the main map, when we walk up to this podium here and right click, we'll get a shuffling of these rainbow colors. So in the next lesson, we'll start talking about how we're actually going to go about adding some C++ code to our project. And then as we proceed through, we'll go through and modify the source code files that we'll add to our project and make and write our function, and then implement it back into the engine to get this shuffling working.